My husband is a big gamer. We are both in our early 20s. Gaming is what he does on his days off, during his free time, and when he gets home from work. I did not know about raging until I married him and moved in together. It is honestly terrifying when I can hear him from the other room go from happy and normal to raging, angry, and profane in only a couple of seconds. I have had conversations about this with him before and how it affects me. He says he wants to stop, but he is not really doing anything to help himself. I do not want to resent him because of games. I want to clarify that we do not have children. He does not neglect responsibilities or ever become violent towards me. He just has anger issues, I guess. Story 1. He has to want to make the decision to change. For me, quitting competitive games and focusing on single-player games helped a lot. Story 2. The easiest way I found to stop getting mad at games is to stop playing competitive online games. If you only have yourself to blame for your misfortunes, there is nobody to really shout at. I still call nonsense sometimes when something is needlessly complicated or bafflingly difficult, but I do not scream into the microphone at a 12-year-old who may or may not have been hacking or better than me. Story 3. Record him acting foolish, then send it to him. Some people simply do not realize how unintelligent they are being. Story 4. I used to be tweaking behind my personal computer, letting everything get to me. It didn't even bother me. I'm in my early 30s, and now I just tilt my chair back and relax. Is he by any chance playing League of Legends? That game, by design, turns you into a demon. Story 5. I have never become very angry beyond an occasional swear word and saying, "Oh, come on," especially at a particularly difficult boss. If you find yourself getting emotionally involved beyond some frustrated swearing, it is time for a break. Go take a walk, get a snack, or take some time to think. Story 6. I quit playing competitive games. I am too small of a man to admit my mistakes in the moment and too big of a man to just let it be everyone else's problem. I am never going back to League of Legends. Story 7. I grew up, that's how. It's not the games. It's his general lack of anger management. He needs to relax and realize that video games are not that serious. That's how I look at it, and I never rage over video games anymore. Story 8. Hello. I'm a therapist who has worked in the technology addiction field and continues to provide training and workshops on technology misuse to professionals and communities. Others have pointed this out, and it is worth repeating. Raging at video games is an emotional processing issue. Several studies have shown that while games do not appear to cause violence directly, they activate our fight or flight response and cause our bodies to release adrenaline and cortisol. This makes emotional regulation more challenging for some people. It is also important to mention that some people view video games as a safe space to vent their anger and frustrations. This is not harmful if done in a way that does not impact others. However, the issue you raised is that it terrifies you, which contradicts the idea of a safe space since it clearly affects other people. I will refrain from giving specific advice here, but I will offer some general information. People who struggle with emotional processing, anger flare-ups, and violence often find relief and improvement in behavior through therapy. Many people have difficulty with emotional regulation, as it is not usually formally taught but rather socially learned. Finding a framework of regulatory strategies can be beneficial. I do not know your personal circumstances. Even if you say he is never violent towards you, you also say his behavior is terrifying. Safety when dealing with escalating behavior such as raging is important for everyone involved. I suggest seeking advice from a local professional if you are unsure and making a plan with specific risk and safety factors if you intend to make any changes. All the best. Story 9. This has nothing to do with gaming. Many people do not rage while playing video games. Some people have anger issues. I play football. I hold it together, but some guys we play with or against get angry and rage during the game. It is an anger problem. You can get help for it. Story 10. I realized that I hated feeling angry during the short times I dedicated to my hobbies and chose to avoid games that make me feel that way. In doing so, I stopped playing competitive games or games that are difficult in ways I do not have the patience to overcome. I understood that I do not like being angry. Many people may feel differently and actively enjoy being angry. I never understood it, but it is what it is. I do not rage, but I do seethe for too long, which affects my sleep and mood in the long term. I asked myself if this is why I love to play video games and chose to take a step back to examine my habits. Story 11. I stopped playing multiplayer games. I am a 41-year-old man, and at least for me, there is this feeling of not being good enough when I lose at things. I never learned how to properly cope with failure growing up. The world is much more peaceful in cooperative or single-player games and a lot more fun. Story 12. What helped me was changing goals. It is impossible to win every game you play, that is a fact, but if you change the goal of each match, you can have your own victory even if you lose. For example, in one match, complete an easy side quest. In another, find and use a certain item. In another, get a kill in a funny way. Simple things like that redirect your focus, and even if you lose, if you accomplish your quest, it is a small personal victory, and it is harder to be mad at that. Eventually, I stopped being mad at games altogether. Of course, it is not foolproof and full losses are inevitable, but my method breaks up the monotony. Story 13. Things that helped me deal with gamer rage. 1. Growing up. Getting out of those hormonal years helps a lot. Playing the most toxic games. It desensitizes you and teaches you that it is too much effort to be mad all the time. Doing a Zen activity while playing games. Just do a soothing activity between games. It helps reset your mental state. For example, I do miniature painting between matches and it is very soothing. Taking some time away from the game. Taking time to cool off and get away from the stressor really helps, whether by laying down, eating, or doing tasks. Watching others rage. Watch others rage at games and it should put into perspective how unproductive it is to get mad at a game, which makes you actively try to avoid that. Story 14. I used to get very angry in my early 20s. Now I am a much more casual gamer and just do not care as much as I used to. Story 15. I stopped playing for a few years. I started playing again during lockdown and heard a friend rage all the time. It was enough for me. Now I get excited but do not rage. Instead of getting mad and saying, "You son of a b asterisk 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 asterisk," I am more like, "Dang, got me." Story 16. I never got angry, but I did get frustrated. Eventually, I realized that I was spending more time being upset instead of enjoying the game. So, I worked on shifting my attitude to just enjoy my time. If I am playing a team-based competitive game and someone is not performing well, I just think, oh well, this just wasn't our round. If we are getting defeated by an opponent, I think, oh well, this game will be over quickly. Story 17. I saw myself getting upset when I played matches against other gamers. I switched to games like Red Dead Redemption 2, which is more story-driven and allows me to play by myself at my own pace. If I do play with others online, it is usually cooperative mode where we work as a team against artificial intelligence enemies. This has greatly reduced my anger. Story 18. Interestingly enough, fighting games helped me control my anger. If you lose, you only have yourself to blame, and they humble you because when you start, you will perform poorly. They are really the only competitive games I play now. However, I mostly play single-player and cooperative games now. It is peaceful and enjoyable. Story 19. I love video games, but the kind of games I play do not generally cause this kind of reaction. On the rare occasion when a game does, I take a break and play something else or go outside. I would say try some Stardew Valley, but I know it is a poor substitute for a platform fighting game. I am not sure how I feel about saying this indicates he has anger issues. You have told him that it freaks you out. If he is not able to stop the outbursts, that indicates an inability to control how he expresses his emotions. If he is not able to stop playing, that suggests he is at least a bit addicted to video games. On the other hand, if he were really into watching football and had a habit of shouting at the television when his team makes mistakes, I do not think this would be seen as pathological. Sorry, I do not have any more helpful advice. Story 20. I used to get upset every day playing League of Legends when I was in high school. Eventually, I realized that every time I loaded it up, I would get angry at the other players or whatever was going wrong in the match. So I made the conscious decision not to play games that make me mad, and it really made a big difference. Now my gaming is actually relaxing, and I cannot imagine going back to choosing to get mad every day. Story 21. I had to stop playing the games that made me mad, like Overwatch and Rocket League, specifically queuing competitive. It is different for everyone, but I reached a point where I had to ask myself why I was putting my mood in the hands of random people on the internet. If someone is going to upset me, I want it to be my own self. Story 22. I don't normally post in relationship forums, so you shouldn't listen to me. I've made different mistakes. If this were the Oregon Trail, is this what you want to tie your wagon to for the long haul? Story 23. The less ego involved one is in a game, the calmer one stays. The more meaningful one's life outside the games feels, the less one is bothered by in-game failure. Do not play League of Legends, Call of Duty, or other games with angry communities. Story 24. Let him know and tell him how it affects you, but tell him when he is not gaming. I am a rager, but my family keeps me in check. Now I do my best to keep calm. I went from raging to whining. Story 25. Honestly, it sounds like he just needs to change his mindset. I used to rage when I played games because I wanted to win. Now that I realize nothing will come of it even if I am very good at games, it has helped me be less serious about it. It also made me realize how foolish it was to get that upset over a game when I would see people freak out the same way I did. Story 26. Raging is pretty normal. The way you do it is what separates a lot of people. He just has to find a way to do it non-destructively. I just do a sort of blank stare for a few seconds and sigh. I usually play a different game if I feel that is not enough, or just go play with my cat and dog. Story 27. He is way too old for that to be acceptable. I remember when I was about 12 and my friend's little brother freaked out in a way you described, and I immediately thought that is not okay. I am not sure of the best course of action, but if that were my partner, it would be a quick zero-tolerance policy with immediate intervention anytime I hear him freaking out. You say you do not have children, and that is very good. I would never allow someone with rage issues to have children with me. That is one of the absolute worst behavioral issues a person can have. Story 28. I have never had to do that for myself or anyone else because I am not a child and neither are my friends. Story 29. This is a really good 20-minute video. It covers some of the causes of rage in competitive games and ways to reduce it. It mainly focuses on fighting games, but it is easy to apply the concepts to other games. Story 30. I avoid player versus player competitive games and sports in real life because I know I am a sore loser in a competitive environment. Despite being raised well, I just get bloodthirsty. Single player and cooperative play is where it is at for me. Since 2020, I stop playing if I get enraged and seek hugs, cuddling, or watch funny memes and videos. Nothing calms me like animal videos, instant karma, or unusual meme videos. Story 31. I'm guessing he is playing very competitive games. Remind him that the best professional players perform their best when they are focused on having fun. Also, remind him to approach each match with the mindset that he has the opportunity to improve every time and should think of each game as practice. If he wins, great. If not, he has gotten better for next time. Signed, a 40-year-old gamer with a wife and kids who only likes Defense of the Ancients 2. Story 32. Personally, raging is something you are prone to depending on the game you play, specifically team-based multiplayer games. I am not saying it happens every time, just sometimes when your teammates are so bad you cannot fathom how they can be the same rank as you in a competitive game. On the other hand, I used to rage too much at nothing until I realized it does not matter. My teammates being bad is inevitable at some point because I also have bad days. So I started to not pay attention to them. If they are bad, they are bad. If they are good, then good for me. I just chill and find that I play better by staying calm rather than focusing on the mistakes people make. As for single-player games, I do not really rage about those. If you are raging at a single-player game, then you need to judge whether you actually enjoy the game or not. Story 33. Stopped playing multiplayer competitive games and opted for awesome single-player story games or player versus environment games. I have met some very intense players who make it their life's mission to achieve top ranks in any game. They have been the most insufferable players to play with because they always leave others hanging. Unable to accept losing, they abandon the party and even the chat to play alone. I also bought a Nintendo Switch OLED and have been having a blast with it so far. Story 34. My friend once said, "You are so different online than in real life." I only truly understood what they meant 10 years later when I realized I was never going to be the top player. I had been rude to both my friends and strangers online. Looking back, the main thing I needed to do was drop the ego. If you are a gamer yourself, try inviting him to play some cozy or simulation games with you, such as Stardew Valley. Anything that is not too intense or stressful. The idea is to help him slowly step away from competitive games. Story 35. I just don't rage beyond a very occasional expression of frustration, and certainly don't scream at things. Granted, I also don't play competitive games, mainly because I find most of them not fun and toxic. Story 36. I have a similar issue with StarCraft 2, maybe not as severe. The game is really fantastic and a lot of fun, so I do not just want to quit it. But it can be very frustrating. Unfortunately, it also affects my girlfriend, so I try to handle it. These are my current strategies. I do not know if they are all applicable to Brawlhalla. Try to avoid the types of situations in the game that frustrate me. I often get tilted in long games, so I play a strategy where I either win or lose early. Try to avoid playing when I am already tilted so it does not escalate. I play worse, which is even more frustrating. I have trouble with this because I am chasing the last dopamine hit. When I have a good game and am happy with the way I played, I save it. Then, when I am chasing the last win, I try to watch one of those games to end a session instead of queuing up again. I might even learn something. I try to avoid playing ladder and instead play with friends and contacts I made online. On ladder, if I have trouble with something that frustrates me, I do not get to try to get better against it and get redemption. I just get frustrated again after 20 games and a couple of days later. In arranged games, I get to replay it, study it, talk about it, and it is much more productive and fun. I took some coaching a while ago, and besides all the other benefits, a side effect was that I could talk about what frustrated me and actually get a good plan on how to deal with it. So when I ran into the same type of game, instead of thinking, "This is unfair," I would think, "Okay, I know what I need to do. Let's try to execute it. If it does not work, I will work on it in coaching." I was less tilted. For a time, it turned one of those frustrating situations into a nice, "I am probably going to win this game" situation. I try not to play when I am tired. All of these have helped, but not to the degree I would like. I think the most important step is for him to recognize it as a problem, which sounds like it is already the case. Great. Maybe you can talk with him about what frustrates him when he rages and why. He gets to vent, you learn more about his interests, which is also nice, and maybe you can identify how to avoid those situations. Some of my other strategies may also be applicable. Good luck. Story 37. Genuinely depends on the person, but it is either straight-up mockery or simply not playing the games that make you angry. I am a fan of the idea that you record him, then send it to him. If that does not work, send it to his friends or family. It is very embarrassing to see a person do that. Story 38. As long as these behaviors are not directed towards you, honestly, I think you should just let him rage. My wife and I are both gamers and occasionally rage when we are frustrated. We have a rule about not bothering each other if the other is gaming unless it is really important. Story 39. I just learned that gaming is not real and does not matter. Also, I stopped playing games that made me frustrated or annoyed. Games like Call of Duty and FIFA. I now only play single-player role-playing games. Story 40. If a game starts getting under my skin, in my head I think, okay, it is clear this is not fun anymore. And if it is not fun, what is the point? Then I turn it off and walk away. Story 41. I noticed I do not like playing with people when they are angry and then realized that is probably true about myself. What is the point of spending free time doing something if I am just going to get upset? I typically stop whatever game I am playing if I notice I am getting frustrated and switch to something else or go do something else in the game or in real life. I also avoid highly competitive games because people are very toxic. It is very rare for me to be angry when drunk or under the influence while gaming. Story 42. I did not like getting angry at games, so I stopped getting angry at them. Now I carry the inexperienced players, block the troublemakers, and quit before any kind of anger actually starts. Story 43. I had this when I was about 10 and threw a CD spindle down the stairs. My parents sat me down and asked why I would do that, and told me my little brother was scared of it. That showed me how it was affecting the people around me, and then we moved on to coping strategies. We decided that every time I would rage, I would take a deep breath. If I still really needed to act out, I would punch something that could take it like a brick wall instead of anything else. It is better to hurt your hand and make it hurt than to hurt something else. I did not want to punch things around me, so over the years the deep breath strategy worked better and better. I switched to cleaning something in the house instead of punching. The point is everyone needs to learn how to deal with their emotions. Apparently, nobody has taught him yet, and he has not learned himself. So he needs some help from you. Story 44. It depends on how angry he gets. Is he just getting frustrated for a few seconds and swearing? Or is he yelling for 5 minutes and slamming things? Story 45. Make him play through every Souls game. Eventually, the rage leaves, and you are just left with acceptance. Story 46. I used to get upset when I lost or failed in games, but I decided to focus on improving instead of just being frustrated. I don't have advice on how to help someone else reach that mindset, though. Story 47. I raged hard when I was a teenager, and that mostly went away when I switched from competitive player to player versus environment, but I still occasionally enjoy the thrill of competitive games even if they make me exclaim in frustration once in a while. It is not much different from sports fans being heavily invested in a football match. I do not think having that passion and excitement is necessarily a problem in itself, but not being able to regulate or control it is. Is he able to do it with a smile and still be friendly towards you? Or is he genuinely angry afterwards? Are his outbursts only anger, or does he have outbursts of happiness as well? Could it be less terrifying to be there and see what is going on instead of hearing it through a door? If he cannot control himself and it is not doing anything good for him, then he needs to remove the source of it, which is whatever competitive game he is playing. I would say he is immature, but honestly, I think it is just normal for early 20s. It is not like you turn 20 and then your brain flips from teenager to adult. It happens gradually. Frankly, this whole situation sounds like two teenagers trying to play house. Story 48. Many men are not taught how to process and handle emotion. Often, anger is just the way another feeling is presenting itself. For me, I was not mad that I was losing. I was sad that I was not good enough. Once I recognized that and accepted it, games became much more enjoyable. Story 49. Growing up. Therapy. Finding other hobbies. I realized it should all be fun, and even in frustrating moments, I remind myself it is just a game and I will respawn or start over. If I am not having fun, I just stop playing the game. Story 50. I don't think I have ever raged once from a game. Maybe when I was in middle school, but I honestly cannot think of anything. Raging like that is not normal. Story 51. I occasionally get annoyed at a game but have never become angry. Ultimately, it is just a game. If I am not enjoying it, I will do something else. Sorry that you are having to deal with this. Story 52. For me, it was a very simple action. I deleted FIFA. I have never gotten as angry at a game as I have at FIFA. Now I am usually calm when I play other games. Story 53. Honestly, I'm a crazy avid gamer. I've played well over 1,500 titles across multiple systems. I play with my kid, my siblings, old friends, and even some coworkers. I'm 35 and have been a gamer since I was around 15. I invested in my first system with money earned from mowing lawns. I have never raged or broken a controller, keyboard, or mouse. Plenty have worn out on the thumbsticks or keys, but never been broken in anger. The closest I came was tripping over a controller while drunk in my early 20s. I am not a small man. My daughter, on the other hand, did begin to rage when playing a game together a while back. I believe the conversation went something like this. Excuse me, but what was that, kiddo? It's just so hard. Explain to me how that excuses you throwing the controller. Well, It's just frustrating. I don't care. Is that yours? No, it's mine. You are playing with my system, my games, and that controller costs nearly $80. You will treat my equipment with respect or you will not play with it at all. But it's so frustrating. It's a game. If you're not enjoying your time with it, play something else. Do not abuse my equipment or you will not be allowed to use it anymore. Notice how my stuff is older than you but still works great. Yeah. And your Switch is broken and won't connect to the TV anymore? Yeah. Now tell me what the difference is. Well, you just don't get it. Kiddo, every game you own was played and beaten by me before I bought it for you. I turned into a hermit for nearly 6 months when I bought you that system to make sure I was giving you good stuff only. I get it. Well, you're just better at this than I am, so you don't get it. The hell I am. I do this for fun to relax. I'm terrible. I don't get upset when I lose or abuse my equipment. I either stop playing because I'm not having fun or play something else. Abuse my equipment again and you're back to nothing but your own handheld. And my library becomes off limits. Okay. Story 54, weird thing, but maybe try touching him when he is angry. My wife touches my shoulder to signal that she can see I am about to lose my temper. This works for me because it gives me time to walk away, then return and communicate later. It is her way of reminding me that she is here, gentle, and needs me to be soft with her. Calms me down quickly, or at least tells me she is beginning to feel uncomfortable. Story 55. Tell him it is cringeworthy, a big turnoff, and makes you not want to have sex with him. Guaranteed he stops laughing out loud. Story 56. I used to be like that when I was much younger, even with offline multiplayer games. I took a long break and came back with a better mindset. I still play competitive games, and they can still be frustrating. I have a little moan to my friends I'm playing with and then carry on, or swap off if any of us get tilted. I would recommend he find some friends to play with who can help or tell him to chill out, or perhaps get him some really good single-player games. Story 57. He needs some other hobbies or non-competitive games as a fallback. I was in a similar situation. Whenever I felt anxious, stressed, or a bit down, not that I would have admitted it, I defaulted to video games for comfort. I often played multiplayer games to stay connected with my siblings and friends. But when you're at a low point and losing or failing at the one thing that should bring you joy, it can break you mentally. It's a rough cycle because then you become more upset with yourself and sometimes dig in deeper by playing more, which does not help. And if you did not play, it meant losing out on social time. It is not easy, but the answer is to avoid playing competitive games as much as possible and to pursue other hobbies and interests. I am a creative person, and working on projects after work, even just a little bit, helps me a lot. It has made me feel more fulfilled, accomplished, and overall happier, as I spend time pursuing enjoyable goals instead of defaulting to games all the time. This reduces game time significantly, but I still sometimes hang out in voice chat with friends while doing hobby activities, which helps maintain those connections. All of this means that when I do play games, I genuinely enjoy them. It has also helped me to touch grass. For me, that means deliberately taking moments to do simple things that bring me joy, such as sitting outside on the back deck, going for a walk, cuddling with my wife, or playing with our cats. These little things break up the routine and help me slowly reprioritize time toward those that deserve it, including myself. I found that at times I was doing chores quickly or making quick, easy food for dinner so I could get back to gaming faster. I have started slowing down these activities and allowing myself to linger in moments unrelated to gaming. I realize that people often do not allow themselves time to be bored these days because they fill it with gaming or social media. For me, boredom boosts creativity, helps me reflect, and makes me grateful for the life I have, which leads to greater happiness overall. Story 58. To be honest, it is an internal matter. Eventually, my friends got tired of me raging. I got tired of being angry while doing things I enjoyed, and I did my best to stop. Does that stop me from getting mad at my game or my friends? No. But am I more conscious about raising my voice to complain about something? Yes. Story 59. He needs to mature. I have been playing video games for 40 years. Sure, things get frustrating. But there is a difference between expressing a little frustration and raging. I dislike playing with angry players. Story 60. I quit playing multiplayer games entirely and shifted more towards single-player games. Eventually, it gets tiring playing with the same types of people repeatedly. Story 61. Anyone who is competitive in nature and cares about winning will experience this at some point. I play games competitively, and it can affect you like that. See how some professional players and streamers react to losing. Professional sports players raging, for example. It also depends on how and what you rage at. If he constantly blames his teammates instead of himself, that could be a red flag. I personally get angry and rage at myself for not doing better. Gaming is a skill, and playing against online players is competitive. If you spend time training your skill and you get beaten, that can make you quite angry. Some people don't rage, but I like winning, so I take winning seriously. Not at the cost of fun or blaming teammates, though. I think it's okay to rage. Let it out as long as you're not physically hurting anything or anyone. Story 62. My brother would rage, and I equated it with being childish and having poor emotional control. Now I just cringe when I see or think about it. Story 63. I am not an emotional child, so I do not have that issue. It is just a game. It is supposed to be for entertainment. If you are getting that angry playing games, maybe games are not for you. Story 64. The person has problems. It is not related to gaming. For me, it was depression. It can cause anger in such situations. Now I am receiving treatment. Story 65. He needs to try games that are less likely to induce that sort of response. I imagine he is playing games that encourage competition like League of Legends, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex Legends, or he is playing high-difficulty games like Elden Ring, and he is just getting stressed out and frustrated. That is not how games should make you feel. I used to play League of Legends and it got me worked up. My life became better and less stressful overnight when I finally quit. Story 66. Here's a fun story about this that I like to tell. I'm a big-time gamer, both tabletop board games and video games, and on weekends my lifelong best friend would come over to my house and we'd drink some beers and play board games. When my son was about 6 years old, my friend and I were playing Pandemic and my son asked if he could play with us. We were more than happy to include him, so we started a new game. Before we knew it, my friend and I were relaxing with our beers while my 6-year-old son stood on his chair, overlooking the board and quarterbacking the game. Some of his ideas were good and some were bad. But neither of us said much and just let him run the game. For those not familiar, Pandemic is a cooperative game where players try to beat the game's mechanics. Eventually, the three of us painted ourselves into a corner and were unable to pull off a victory. At that point, my little 6-year-old lost his temper. I actually thought he was going to flip the game board, but before he got that far, my friend and I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what are you doing? Do you ever see either of us act like that when one of us loses a game?" I then explained to my son some basic fundamentals of gaming and competition. Gaming is about the journey, not the destination. Sure, winning a game is fun, but not as much fun as hanging out with your friends. Sometimes losing can be more valuable than winning. In the case of our game of Pandemic, I told him we all learn things like what not to do, and sometimes learning what not to do in any situation can be more valuable than knowing what to do. People tend to reflect on their failures more than their successes, and that's why failure can sometimes be better. My son is now a teenager and about to start high school. The lessons he learned playing board games with my friend and me when he was a little kid have followed him as he gets older. He studies martial arts, and as part of his training, he has to compete. Many people have told me that he is one of the best competitors they've seen. He tries hard, and he's disappointed when he loses, but he always shows good sportsmanship. The summary of this is that my friend and I taught my son that losing is part of life and it does not have to be the worst part. There is a lot to be gained from losing, but the game itself is where you should find pleasure, not in winning. Story 67. I had a family member who stopped playing games because he broke a controller. Honestly, you should avoid hobbies that make you upset or that you only enjoy when you are succeeding. Story 68. I feel his anger. Let him know it is okay to turn the game off for a little while when it gets frustrating. That is what I have learned to do myself. If I ever find that I am getting loud or abrupt, I just turn it off for a little while and find a movie or something else to keep my mind busy. Story 69. The best way to support their mental health is to change how they view games. They should not see games as something deep, but rather as a way to hang out with friends, pass the time, or enjoy a story. If they are getting that angry, they should not be playing games or those specific games. Story 70. I think I have become more mature and realized I was getting upset over things that did not matter at all. Story 71. If I am tilted, I am not playing my best. If it is a game like Elden Ring, I just stop playing when I get actually tilted. With games like Madden, I just stop. If you play a full online game and lose at the end, it is just not a good way I want to spend time. Winning is fun, but I do not want to invest my time if I use an hour and end up worse than I was before. Elden Ring is enjoyable because you eventually win, and it is insanely satisfying. Story 72. Coming from someone who used to be like this, it is really his choice whether he stops or not. I genuinely broke computer mice by slamming them on my desk so hard because I was bad at Counter-Strike, a competitive shooter game. For me, it was just realizing that I was not even having fun. I enjoyed winning, but I beat myself up so much for losing that it became a terrible experience. Story 73. As I got older and more mature, I realized that games that make me angry are not worth playing. Video games are supposed to be fun and make you feel happy and satisfied. Personally, I stopped playing games that I noticed would make me angry, mostly competitive multiplayer games, and I have been enjoying gaming a lot more. That is my 2 cents. Story 74. Sounds like he still needs some emotional maturing. If the game is annoying you that much, just turn it off. The last time I properly got angry at a game was when I was 9 years old. Once, I nearly threw the controller at the screen. I vowed to turn it off when it was upsetting me. After all, it's just a video game, especially if it is affecting your loved ones. Surely they are more important. Story 75. That is not normal behavior. The whole reason for gaming is to escape and have fun. By all means, be angry at the rest of the problems in life. There is plenty of it. Story 76. I learned this in 2020. If I am having a bad time and starting to get angry, I stop playing. Not trying to be sarcastic, I seriously stop playing and watch YouTube for about an hour to cool off. Now I have added an extra tool to my toolkit. If I feel like raging, I use a stress ball to squeeze and smash to release my frustration. Now I am much calmer when gaming because my temper has improved. Story 77. It is just a game. You have to remember that, at the end of the day, it literally means nothing. It is just pixels. Show him this. Story 78. I helped it by playing fewer multiplayer games. Eventually, I matured enough in that department to realize how foolish I was being. Story 79. Hopefully he will grow out of this. I hate the thought of him fathering a child and acting like this. You and your family absolutely deserve better. This type of behavior is expected from someone in their teens, not an adult. Story 80. Talk to him about it. As another poster suggested, send him a video of himself doing it. Often people do not realize how embarrassing their behavior is. Your husband gets caught up in the competitive aspect of the games, and his adrenaline pumps, causing him to go overboard. Let him know what he is doing so he can feel a bit foolish for a brief moment and then control himself in the future. Story 81. He needs to put the gamepad down and walk away when he starts feeling like that. People can get frustrated doing anything competitive when it is not going their way. He is not an anomaly in that, but he is not playing a Wimbledon final. He can and should walk away from it. Story 82. Expressing anger is okay if done in an acceptable way. Don't snap at him for being angry. Snap at him for how he shows it. Also, if you want him to have better control of his anger, make him play through the Souls series. The controllers he breaks come out of his budget. If he manages to finish, he will be calm and composed. Story 83. I quit playing if it starts making me angry. The same goes for other people. I find an excuse to stop playing with them if they start getting too angry. At that point, it is enough for that day, and you are better off doing something else. Sometimes you just have bad days, and things upset you easily. It is better to avoid playing on those days. Story 84. I have never understood men who get angry at games. I have been annoyed at lag spikes or teammates who made mistakes, but I have never freaked out on them. Story 85. I kind of grew out of it. It was not a super regular occurrence, the same rate as anyone who gets angry with stuff that keeps failing them. Keys lost, makeup not applying, car broken. Also, I do not play any multiplayer games, only single player. That can matter. Story 86. It is not anger issues. It is just testosterone. Men can release it through activities such as lifting weights or similar exercises. Story 87. I have been gaming since the Atari 2600, longer than your son has been alive. That rage has nothing to do with gaming and everything to do with his own lack of self-awareness and self-control. Do not downplay it, ignore it, or let him tell you it is a gamer thing. It is not. It is inside of him as a person, and eventually it will come out when he does not have a game to blame. Story 88. I had a friend like that who never changed. He was definitely the kid who punched holes in walls. That is alarming behavior and is not normal for a man. If he can get that upset over dying in a game, imagine what he will do if you ever make a mistake. Story 89. I have stopped gaming for the most part. I am starting to come back a bit, but when my wife told me that getting mad at pixels and random people I will never meet is a huge turnoff for her, and that I should not even attempt to get lucky after gaming, I listened. So, with coming back little by little, I have deleted all of my first-person shooter competitive multiplayer games. My friends that I now play with play cooperative games and story-driven games and are having more fun. Lots of laughing, jokes, and silly moments. It has honestly been more fun not trying to be competitive. Story 90. I agree with the record option. No one really likes to see themselves candid. I have broken a few controllers in front of my wife, and it was embarrassing every time. I was so mad, and I just did that in front of her. Shortly after, she knows I am ordering another controller. I think it is an age thing. In my mid-20s, I went through that for the Spyro remake myself. But do not quit. Just do not hang in too long if he keeps behaving like that. I ended multiplayer games during my college years. Story 91. I just sort of mostly grew out of it. Back when I was 12 or 13, videos of people raging were really popular. If you see a couple of those and have the self-awareness to realize that that's what you look like when you rage, it's hard to justify expressing frustration in that way. Every now and then I'll still let out a what the heck, but I won't shout it at the top of my lungs. If he is in his 20s and still doing it, I do not know if anything is going to help. If you have already tried talking to him and nothing has changed, nothing will change until he decides to make an effort to curb the behavior. Story 92. If I were with a partner who did this, I would tell them what I tell my friends. If you cannot control your temper, then do not play it. I know you are married, but this is behavior I do not tolerate in anyone I spend time with. It is about you, for Christ's sake. Story 93. It really isn't that serious. It's called self-control. I used to get very angry when I played video games when I was younger. I stopped because I am not a child anymore. Story 94. Stopped playing competitive video games and started playing casual video games. Same enjoyment and no one to get angry at. Story 95. I would just point out he is a grown man. I play games, as do all of my friends, but no one over 20 should be shouting at a screen. It shows incredibly poor self-control. I would bring up a video of someone else having a rage moment and comment on how off-putting it is to have so little self-control. If he gets the hint and asks if you feel the same when he does it, say yes. Story 96. I did a raid with a guy on Destiny. He was losing his mind at one team member who was constantly making mistakes. I was telling him to calm down, but he resisted, believing this person shouldn't be making these errors. I let him know that I trained as a paramedic, and when it comes to running a code, essentially when someone dies and you try to revive them, the American Heart Association, which conducts extensive research on the effectiveness of different protocols, has shown in studies that the most effective teams focus on positive communication. Ultimately, feel how you want and get mad if you want, But we have strong evidence showing that teams perform better when you avoid being judgmental and instead focus on positivity. The evidence is clear. This person may indeed be making mistakes, but if you want to win, stop being hostile and they will perform better. Story 97. You have to remind him that he plays games to have fun, not to rage. If he is raging too much, he is playing the wrong game. Story 98. I started getting angry at games due to bad influences. One night, I caught myself in the act of raging and thought, this isn't me. It was a moment of realization when I saw people encouraging me to be upset or laughing at my expense. I stopped associating with people like that and became normal again. Story 99. By breaking it down logically. I look with utter disdain and disrespect at people who cannot manage their emotions over pixels. A game, a pastime activity for leisure with absolutely zero importance or relevance to actual life. Nothing anyone does in games carries any significance or importance. It is just a game. Shouting at grass growing would be equally meaningless. Therefore, it stands to reason that getting worked up over it is wasteful. But let's put that aside. We are emotional beings, so if we ignore logic for a minute, we can acknowledge that we will encounter frustrating situations. When this happens, we should know to remove ourselves from situations that carry no benefit, especially if they only cause negative emotions. This is the part your husband is not understanding. These approaches may not work, but one that might is letting him know how absolutely disgusting and off-putting such behavior is. Story 100. I realized I was not having a good time and stopped playing games that made me feel that way. My free time is precious enough that I do not want to waste it feeling angry or upset at a game. Story 101. Well, I stopped playing games that upset me. I have never gotten this angry before. It is frustrating when you lose badly, but it is just a game. If he cannot stop on his own, he should quit the games that upset him this much. Story 102. Took care of other matters in my life. If you are getting angry at video games, then you need to seek mental health care because you have other issues that need to be addressed. Story 103. He needs to learn to accept defeat. It sounds to me like someone who should not be playing competitive games. Story 104. Is there something you could do or not do when he is raging? He could see a therapist, or if he will not do that, you could try the type of training we are doing with our new dog. Every time he rages, go for a walk. My wife left the room once and said, I do not need to listen to a temper tantrum, and it was a moment of clarity for me. I am sorry you have to deal with this. I wrote a book about mindfulness that includes a chapter about video games. I will gladly send you a portable document format file if you direct message me. Good luck. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.